Welcome, Dajawn, to Roots Down, a regenerative AF podcast. Our goal for this podcast is to grow our urban areas to be more regenerative. We want to see more plants, biodiversity, healthy ecosystems.
Absolutely.
And I think you embodied that so much. I got to meet you at the Synced conference just recently, and I was very enlightened to see young faces doing the amazing work that you're doing. So tell the audience who you are, why you exist, and I think that might be a little difficult to do, but yeah. But tell the audience who you are.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that, Jamie. And I appreciate your words because that means a lot. Well, I'm Dajawn Williams. Like you said before, I'm an environmental scientist with a degree out of Virginia State University. And how I got to where I'm at, that's like a great question. I will just say I always had a love for the environment. I grew up in a suburban area, so the access to the environment wasn't there as much as I wanted to. So the little nerding out in me at 15 years old, I had like a small mammal almanac. And I was like, oh, I want to find animals. I want to find plants. So I think that's where I found my love for science. And from there, I became an athlete. And that's what got me a scholarship in school. But I knew that I couldn't study.
What kind of athlete?
I was a track and field athlete. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
So I knew I couldn't study track and field in school. That couldn't be my major. So I took AP Environmental Science in high school, and I got a 5 out of 5 on that exam. So I was like, man, if you kind of just took this college test and got a good score, this might be what you're good at. And then from there, I made my passion focused around the environment, and then I focused on careers, opportunities, and internships of how to get in there. Not to dive too much into that, but getting into this field, I found out that there were small windows to allowing people to get into this field. Like, it was very hard to find your foot in the door. So I immediately transitioned my passion from, okay, you know the outdoors. How do we get other people in there? So I would say that's kind of the phase of Dajawn I'm at right now, environmental educator and workforce training to get people into this green field.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I want to ask you, you do a lot of like invasive works, preserving and restoring like native ecosystems.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of like, that's one thing we nerded out about and
Yeah.
talked about.
I can nerd out all day about plants.
So I have some certain philosophies around that. Some of the questions, are we ever going to be able to restore native species back, or native old growth forests back to the way they were? Is it going to be different because evolution of plants,
All necessary questions.
right? It's really,
Yes.
really crazy. But what is the state of all of our old growth forests here in the greater Atlanta area?
Absolutely. I actually once again, I appreciate this question because, full transparency, I moved from Virginia to Atlanta almost in despair. I was like, I don't want to do this because I thought I was moving to a concrete jungle. I seriously thought I was moving from Virginia being a nice kind of mix of green space and urban to concrete jungle. And when I first got in here, I met some people who were in the environmental field, and they introduced me to these green spaces and to these old growth forest pockets that we have in Atlanta. And I was blown away. The only other beautiful experience I could relate to, and I didn't appreciate Virginia's beauty until after I started learning about the environment, was Maine. So I'm just like, whoa, if I could go from Maine, these beautiful mountains, to Atlanta with these little pockets of beautiness, I really drove myself to wanting to restore those. Now, getting into these spaces, that's where I can be transparent. There are a lot of invasives, and the more the invasives encroach on these places, the more our natives are not going to be able to
Name your
serve.
top three.
Top 3 invasives.
Top 3.
All right, I would definitely
Quick fire.
say I come all the way across privet. Chinese privet is a big one.
It's a hated one.
Everyone knows about Chinese privet, and
hated
there's
one.
not a site that I will be at where I'm possibly not pulling privet. So the next ones I would say, as far as tier system, kudzu and wisteria. Those are the next 2 we are going at because those vines are absolutely destroying our ecosystem. Everyone knows kudzu. Everyone knows kudzu, but wisteria is actually a pretty big one too.
Big one.
And people are kind of brushing it to the side because it's beautiful flowers, which I'm not mad at. I love flowers. However, the more we allow wisteria to stay in our ecosystem, the more it is going to invade. So those would definitely be my top three. Another issue with me getting into these green spaces is that there is a push for people to want to be positive environmentalists or conservationists. However, I do believe there is a slight lack of education in this field. So one thing we have realized is that there are operations being done where we are cutting native vines, and native vines are actually providing tons of food and tons of habitats and tons of protein for our wildlife. And if we don't have the education to know how to preserve these, then unfortunately we are going to keep destroying these ecosystems. So I would say the state of our green spaces is that we are on a rise as far as education and native preservation. We just need a little bit more help.
Yeah. And the help, I think, is like the missing middle is, for me, is the education.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
I think like all the workforce education, the workforce does not know. They're trained on 5 species of plants, like a boxwood or a holly.
Yes.
Right? This is Bermuda grass. And then they know their turf grass. But then when it comes to like someone wanting to promote more biodiversity and plant biodiversity, they go out there and they're like, do I trim this hedge of
do I prune it back?
Yeah, do I prune it
back?
back?
Just pull this out? Like, I
and
agree.
They just whack them. They just whack it down.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
I do agree.
So I think the missing part of this is education.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like how do we get this education to be mainstream? Because if we're going to promote healthy urban ecology and build it, like how do we get this education out to the masses?
So I would definitely start off by answering that with workforce training. Like, I really think that there's more than enough opportunities to create programs where any and everybody can get into this program and learn what's going on in our ecosystem. We have the Green Space Restoration Corps, but that's more personal. I will get general broad where AmeriCorps, that was my first insight into, wait, I can use my hands and restore the world and learn about what I'm doing as well. And that's actually where my experience of Maine came from. I was sent up into the woods for 5 months. And for those 5 months, I stayed in a tent. I had to dig my own latrine. I was cutting down red cedars and making bog bridges. But it was such...
What were you doing there again?
So it was
and this was on your own accord?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
I gotcha.
No, well, on my own accord as far as through AmeriCorps, and I'll explain that a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah,
as soon as I graduated, I got an email from AmeriCorps, and they were like, hey, we don't know where we got your resume from, but we would love for you to come up and do conservation work. 4 years as an environmental science in college, I didn't even hear the word. I may have learned about it in a textbook, but I didn't understand what conservation was. At my school, everyone's trying to teach me how to be a farmer. That's not that. There's no judgment to that. It's just I knew that's not the path I wanted to go on. So after I got that email, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to be doing? They said, well, you come up to Maine and you're going to basically be a environmental scientist, but more restoration. You are going to be doing hands-on work for our, I believe it is Maine Conservation Corps. So I was like, okay, this sounds pretty cool. I asked everyone around me for their opinions, and they pretty much were like, yeah, you should never do something like that. And I get where everyone was coming from. It was lack of experience. It's a lack of, I don't want to say lack of drive, but it's more, I would much rather rely on my fear of not knowing what I'm getting to rather than jumping into something that might be a little risky. And I was at the point of the time where I was like, well, I don't know where my life is going, so I can be a little risky. And it turned out to be a beautiful experience. I mean, I traveled all around the state of Maine, where I was working in floodplains, old growth forests, state parks, where I had a different experience on all these different ecosystems while also learning how to use my hands in restoring these places. That's where I found my first love of like, oh, guys, we all can do this. And AmeriCorps is actually what I gauged our workforce training program off of.
They paid you to do that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, hell yeah. Sign me up.
You will have to probably find your own survival tactics with the pay you're getting up there. But yes, it is a paid opportunity, and they give you food stamps. So that was my first experience with food stamps, where I'm like, wait, what is this? I'm up in Maine. I'm staying in a tent. And they're like, oh, here's $400 a month to buy groceries. And I'm like, oh, I'm in a tent. I don't need a kitchen full of food. This is pretty awesome. So it's just the fact of the matter that it was such a interactive program while you're being trained and giving an education in a sense that allows you to be involved is how we gauge our workforce training program. It's like, hey, we know what's going on in here. Let's get people who also want to enjoy this and also want to learn. So that's about 9 months where we just train them about all about native trees, all about native shrubs, all about restoration. And I'm looking to expand this a little bit more to colleges so that students who are seniors can directly get into transitioning into this workforce right after graduating.
Yeah. So there's a few things here, right? So it's workforce development and training,
Absolutely.
but it's also job placement.
Yes.
So
yes.
we need to build both. We need a groundswell on both of those things.
Absolutely.
But I honestly feel, and I say this a lot, I feel that the landscaping industry is really poised to be the leader in this space.
Yes.
Because it comes with so much money and service money, for $188 billion a year industry.
Yes.
I think that a lot of people need to create, like what you guys are doing with Eco Addendum, shameless plug, but it's like the idea of creating like landscaping companies that are doing like urban restoration.
Yes.
And then we build this necessary, when these companies are out there, then the need for the education gets greater.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
I wonder, curious to ask you about, well, first of all, youth involvement.
Yes.
18 to 25-year-olds. We need these kinds of programs. We need more AmeriCorps.
Absolutely.
Like we need for them to go to like little boot camp. I would love for this to be set up like little boot camps to learn about urban ecology or
You're talking
ecology.
about language.
Yeah, it'd be great. So are there any other programs that you know of? And then I'd ask you like a second question. If you were to design a program, what would that look like? Because I mean, I don't know that there is any.
You know what? That is actually a great question. And the first one that pops in my head with you asking that is I am not too familiar with the organization, but I believe it is Habesha Farms. And they are, I believe, South Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
And they have a Green Works program that I just learned about 3 months ago. And this is more agricultural based. Again, no judgment.
Yeah,
It's
no
more
judgment.
agricultural based where they're teaching you how to plant crops for farming. Native landscape service for your farms, like learning how to manage things, rainwater collection. So, but as you go through this, I want to say it's like a half a year program, they then immediately put you into a job either at someone's local farm or in the community where you are now working. So that is actually one in Atlanta that I have heard about. If I had to create a dream one, I would definitely wrap it around like AmeriCorps, where it's simply like finding the funding, finding the support for someone who believes in this, and then paying. I would probably target seniors. That is a very personal relationship and a personal story of mine. You know, my 4 years of college, I do not feel like I had a great mentorship or guide of like, hey, you're an environmental scientist. This is where you can get into for your field. So for me, I feel like that is just such a missing gap when it comes to the field. The green job corps, the green field, is that we need to hit the juniors and the seniors of our higher education so that we can get them into this job.
So juniors and seniors of college, not
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So shameless plug.
Yes.
The Fruitful Community Foundation, the organization I founded.
Yeah.
And the Green Hive Leadership Program is designed that was like the missing part for me. The aha for me was like 18 to 25-year-olds were left off the table.
Yes.
And it's not just, for me, it's not just the job training as far as the ecology-based knowledge.
Yeah.
It's everything around that.
Yes.
It's the policy.
It's It's
right?
all the, I don't want to say red taping, but it's all the things that get you in there that makes it so difficult.
Yeah, they need to, really, we need to popularize the ideas
Yes.
of this, of like urban restoration and
Absolutely.
ecology, and knowing that knowledge. That knowledge shouldn't be, that knowledge, I believe, should exist with every part of knowledge that you do.
Absolutely.
Like how we apply climate science knowledge and how we apply this, how healing planet should be like wrapped in everything we do.
Yeah, it all goes hand in hand. And I want you to know that Green Hive program, yeah, we're on it too.
And that's what what I want to work with you
Yeah,
on. We talked a lot about this, but like I think giving 18 to 25-year-olds a lot more agency and creating a network of of hivers
Yes.
that know how the Green Jobs Network
Yes.
works.
Yes.
And that includes civic engagement, policy, right?
It's a big umbrella. It's a big
Art
umbrella.
as advocacy, because you don't just have to be, that's the thing about all these other programs. It's like you want to teach them how the importance of like, you know, native species and getting your hands dirty. A lot of people don't want to do that.
Yes, and I think that's also where we're missing the gaps. That's kind of how I partner with Kennesaw, although I'm also still working for them, but I gravitate towards the environmental scientists, toward the ecologists, or people who are interested in outdoors, and then I singly select what they are passionate about. That's actually how I got one of my new admin assistants. She is an art major, but she wants to be in forest. And I just feel like where we've missed it over time is allowing these people who may not be directly a botanist or directly an environmental scientist their space within this field. And I think that's really where we're going to start making a huge difference.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really interested in the policy part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think, I think the status quo of like what, like the people, like the corporations that can make a difference, you know, like the corporations and the governments that can make a real big difference. Like they create these policies and RFP language that the landscapers answer to that are really perpetuating the problems in our urban fabric. They're really kind of like doing this, status quo of mowing and blowing and planting these invasives for the clients, for, their clients.
Yes.
Like we need to kind of broaden the education and the awareness. And then I think that's where I think all the green jobs will come from. You know, like I want to see the future of green jobs being like, a massive influx of like creative thinking around the environmental space and how we heal the environment in all facets. But yeah, I find it amazing. Well, I find it really refreshing that you're doing this work. And I love what I do because I get to meet people like you that are pounding the pavement and making a difference in communities. Find it interesting too. You know somebody that's very, very near and dear to my heart. Michael Blackwell, I'll give him a shout out. He's at Kennesaw State University, the farm there.
Yeah, absolutely. KSU Field Station.
So yeah, he taught me how to farm in Jasper, Georgia. Wolf Scratch Farm was founded by him and I, both him and I. Did you get a chance to talk to him about that?
So I did not get a chance to talk to him about the original farm, but when I brought him out, he was like, I haven't heard that name in a while. I was like, I know, man. I just met him. Everything's all cool. He was like, man, you got to, actually, he did invite you guys back out to the farm. You guys got to get out there.
I want to get back. I mean, getting back out there would be awesome. He's great. I mean, he taught me everything.
Absolutely.
And taught me patience, which was something I didn't have before. He's like, I remember him telling me like for watering plants in the pots before they went out into the field, I'm like poking at stuff all the time.
Like, is it good? Is it good?
And he's like, stop poking at the plants. He's like, you're driving me bananas. Stop poking at the damn plants. But
to give you guys a comparison, Michael has probably enough patience to watch an apple tree grow. Like Michael is a very calm guy.
Yeah. So tell the audience more about the farm work there and what's going on with the food forest. I think people want to know, like, KSU is doing some shit, right?
Absolutely, yes. And I would definitely say, since I've got on the team on the board, I'm going into my second year, I would say that we have seen more people come out to the field station just to be a part, which I am so excited about. So when I got onto the team at Kennesaw, it was first just as a sustainability specialist for the Office of Sustainability. And my original task fell under like composting and recycling and connecting students or registered student organizations to the Office of Sustainability, which was absolutely fine. With the skill set I brought in as a naturalist, we kind of pivoted that responsibility a little bit, where I started doing tours of our arboretum, which is an old growth forest that kind of no one was really talking about. So it's like, hey guys, we have a very special forest here. So
right here.
Exactly. So now we do tours there where we actually have some pretty like high value species that we now identify in there. So we have I believe it's the long stemmed bluet, which is more of a mountain species of like North Georgia. But because we're a little bit in northern Georgia and this arboretum is in a pocket of cooler temperatures and wind patterns, you have these species that are surviving in this small little pocket. And we have tons of oaks. Everyone knows oaks, but in this area, we have nice black oaks and we have nice scarlet oaks up there. So this arboretum is like beautiful. And we have relic trees. If any of you guys play like Skyrim or anything like that, relic is going to be like the oldest tree probably in the forest. And we have about 2 to 3 relic trees in that arboretum.
How old are they?
They're both white oaks, so I would give them about 220 years old. Yeah, they're pretty
220
old.
years
Yeah,
old.
absolutely, yeah. So once a tree goes into its relic phase, it starts basically pruning itself to not compete with the younger forest that is coming up because it's already been there for so long and it no longer needs those energy from those lower limbs. So it's like, okay, let me just keep my top canopy and let this younger forest do its thing.
Hanging out in the 1800s, those trees were just
Literally
in the forest hanging out.
Literally, that's actually a joke we always say, like, this was here before the USA. And it's like, but that's the reality of it. Some of these trees were. So, and then we went into the field station where food waste. Unfortunately, Michael and Luke do so much at the farm. I mean, they grow pounds and pounds and pounds. Half of that contract goes to the commons. Half of it is for the food forest or any students that show up that they can grab. Unfortunately, the exposure was not there enough, so there was food waste. One of my new responsibilities was to try to find out how to mitigate this food waste. So then I would do green markets where I would have a table out at Kennesaw, go harvest. I would help them at the food forest, plant, whether that's harvesting, planting, or invasive removal. I would grab whatever food waste I could and just give it out to students for free. So then going into my second year contract at Kennesaw, we saw more people wanted to know about the field station. Also, more students who were involved in a similar degree field wanted to know more about the field station, which was exactly what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. So then going into my second year, we pivoted a little bit more where now every other Tuesday, I do a volunteer event at the field station to help out Michael, whether that's in the food forest or at the field station, and any student can sign up and I teach them agriculture, permaculture, or horticulture for about 2 hours while they're also helping out the field station, while also getting a little insight of things they might want to do when they're getting out of college. So we've definitely grown a lot now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Food waste, you know, I don't know if we've had conversations about food waste. We should definitely get some people on the show.
Absolutely.
Talk about that. It's a big problem.
So
it's a huge problem.
If you don't mind, I met a lady at this conference and she pretty much almost told me, yeah, your job is my opposition. And I'm like, wait, what? So one of the responsibilities I now have at the field station is connecting with community partners to possibly see if there are sites for food forests within these communities. So I was talking to her about that and she's like, okay, and what about all the food from these food forests that don't get picked up? It's like, ooh, that's a great question. And her job is all about food waste in all of Georgia. And she said that is the biggest problem, is the plants we put in the ground to produce food is causing the most waste. So from there, I really had to adjust my thought process of, let me put a food forest everywhere in Georgia.
Yeah, but I want to make sure
absolutely.
The audience knows that
Absolutely.
that I don't think that's a local farm
No,
problem
it's
or
more
food forest problem.
It's more huge operation.
It's like the Whole Foods and the grocery stores throwing away the food that's grown on large farms that grow from California.
No, I do appreciate that clarification because you're absolutely right about that. It's more large farm corporations.
Oh, yeah.
But it was the thought process of that conversation that had me think, well, okay, am I thinking enough about food waste? Which is why at Kennesaw, it was like, okay, let me see how I can help them because I know there's food waste here. What can we do about it?
Right.
Yeah, and then we just give it away to students for free.
Yeah, it's problem solved.
Absolutely.
You know, I remember talking with somebody when I was working in municipalities. I'm not going to mention any names, but absolutely. I remember one of the issues was like, hey, let's grow fruit trees on public right of ways, and I was like, yeah, this is. You know, that's what I was trying to sell. I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. We should do this. And then the pushback was, well, no, the fruit's going to rot and then it's going to fall to the ground. And I'm like, okay, well, no, I think we have a community here in Clarkston that are actually going to really love this food.
Yeah.
And they're going to glean the trees, and it's not going to be a problem.
Absolutely.
Let's come up with another problem. And then the other problem was like, well, there's going to be, you know, like there's all these communities from Pakistan and Rwanda.
We have to know what they want.
Well, they're saying that they're going to pick the trees clean, and I'm like, well, which one? Which
so,
one
so
is?
now we have a problem on both extremes.
Which one is it? Like you
Interesting.
pick one. It's like, either it's going to be picked clean or there's not going to, there's going to be food waste all over the sidewalks. I'm like, anyway. So the systemic problems that we have.
Absolutely.
And, the solutions that we try to come up with that engineers or civil engineers or people in cities that they think about, and that they deter cities and stuff from planting these things because they think there's going to be a food waste issue. But yeah, food waste is a big problem. I love to see that Kennesaw State has these really great programs.
Absolutely.
The farm, I remember when the farm first went up.
Yes. Yes.
And I was like, wow, this is really progressive for like a small little town.
Yes.
In Kennesaw, of all places.
And it was a huge project. Started off as a concrete plant, and they transitioned the entire thing into a 25-acre farm. So, like, they did their thing over there.
Yeah, it's great. It's really, really great. So, is Michael Blackwell growing apples on that property?
Yes. So he's actually he got me more into wanting to plant food forests, honestly. So we have an entire orchard at the Kennesaw Field Station. I would say off the top of my head, we have 18 trees up there on that hill, and all of them are producing fruit. So it's absolutely beautiful. We have pears, plums, and peaches up there. He also has taught me how to graft. So I did not know about grafting when I first got into this field. And then learning from him, I thought he was a wizard at first. I'm like, this doesn't seem cool.
This ain't gonna work.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know about this. And then he showed me a successful graft that they did last year. And I'm looking at the fruit, and I'm just like, Michael, why did I not know this was a thing? And it's, again, we go back to that exposure thing. I think, I don't even want to use the word gatekeeper. I think it's just the exposure of these certain tactics or aspects or ways you can do things is just not out there enough. So now I incorporate it into things I do. I think exposure is truly something I have embedded into my character. So we are currently planting a food forest in Mableton County where I identified a nice sized black cherry tree that we could do a grafting workshop of plums and another kind of cherry on that native black cherry tree.
Start with an M, Montmorency cherry, or I forget the name of that variety. I think it's a variety that's sour that grows really well here. It doesn't have like as much blight or issues.
I'm not familiar with another cherry in here. I know we have the black cherry, but if there's another,
that's not a good one. That one I think we've had a lot of issues with. It doesn't do well with humidity and moisture.
Interesting.
That's a cherry tree that goes really, really well in Washington. Trust me, Dajawn. One of the things I love the most is cherries.
Absolutely.
When cherry season comes in, I'm like, oh my God, I can eat a bowl full of them, especially those Rainier cherries.
I love cherries, although I have never tried like wild ones. Obviously, I've always done from the store.
They're sour.
Okay, all right. So I want to.
They're sour. And I remember one of my memories of working with Michael, he invited me to a lady's house that had a Montmorency cherry. I'm saying the name wrong, and everyone's going to laugh at me.
Marzipan. I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's a cherry that starts with M. Maybe we'll put that as in the podcast, like put the description of the cherry tree. But anyway, it's a sour. Absolutely. It's a sour like French cherry, and it was growing all over this tree. I remember we picked buckets and buckets of it, and I was like, oh my God. And
this is beautiful.
And I loved them because they're really sour and tart. We also have like our Bush Nanking cherries.
Absolutely.
Which I really actually adore those a lot. I like all cherries, but yeah, grafting is magical. For those people who haven't done it, I may try to do it. We're doing a workshop at the Chambly Library this this Saturday. This podcast will air 2 weeks after So sorry guys, you're gonna miss out. You're gonna miss out. But we are doing all of our winter pruning and cleanups at the Clarkson Library.
Absolutely.
Thanks to Commissioner Ted Terry for funding that. But yeah, we're going in and pruning all of our fruit trees. And I actually have a couple, there is a.
You got your own science? I might have to text you.
There's a pear tree at the Clarkson Library that I am not sure what the variety is.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna get a couple scions.
Absolutely.
and I'm gonna graft. I think I'm gonna graft a couple different kind of varieties of Asian pears to it.
Why not?
Yeah.
I know this could be such a touchy conversation, but in my head, I'm literally just like, why not? Like, if you could have the regular pear you're looking for, but then also have 3 different varieties on the same tree, are we really doing harm anywhere?
No. Well, let me tell you what is a problem.
I would love to hear. So listen, I love to be transparent with everybody. I'm always learning. Always learning.
Oh, me too.
Lay it on me.
Me too. Well, you probably know this, but okay. So Bradford pears.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we use as our main rootstocks at the field station.
That to me, when Michael was like, these Bradford pears are like notorious for just causing mess.
Yep.
Shedding limbs, causing.
They might have beautiful flowers, but they stink.
They stink like ass. I mean, they smell horrible.
They technically they're not like thorns, but they can be thorny. Like they're just
thorny. There.
It's a nasty.
Not
tree.
good. Not good.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, so I can graft them. And I remember cutting down the stumps around my orchard that we planted and starting to graft, like doing direct bark grafts and all these crazy grafts. And I remember like now I have an abundance of Asian pears.
Yes.
And I don't have this stupid Bradford pear tree anymore.
From a tree you literally did not want, man. It's literal magic.
It was awesome. It was awesome. I was like, shit, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I think my in-laws, when they looked outside and saw me chopping down all these Bradford pears, they're like, what is he
he's
doing?
Going crazy.
Going crazy. I did go a little crazy.
Honestly, I think it's okay to go a little crazy over plants.
Yeah. Yes. Healthy. That's a healthy crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, grafting is magical. Michael Blackwell was super magical.
Absolutely.
Big shout out and big love to him. He really taught me. I really fell in love with agriculture a lot because of like what I saw at his farm and his parents, who I'm sure have both passed away by now.
I was about to say, I think so. And I think we talked a little bit about Tater.
Yeah, his Tater, the wonder dog.
Yeah.
I remember going to his farm and just like all of his parents canning all this stuff. And it was like, fields. I remember helping him plant all of his orchards and harvesting figs with him at different people's houses. And I was like, it was a magical time. I think Michael and I will look back at that time as being like, it's kind of a renaissance of agriculture. It was great. It was really, really great. Have you ever been up to in Pickens County up to his farm?
No. So I was literally just about to say, all right, we got to exchange visits. Like we got to get you down to the field station and I got to go up to Pickens because that's what everyone talks to me about when they talk about Michael. They're like, wait, so you've never been to his farm? No, I have not.
Yeah.
I would love to see
I stopped going to Pickens. Well, we sold our farm and left in 2016.
Okay.
Because certain flags started going up and I'm like,
absolutely.
Check out, guys. I'll see you guys later. It's not a good place to be Jewish during that time. So it's like, I'm out. So I try not to go to Pickens County as much as possible. Although there's a farm to table restaurant there that has the best pimento cheese sandwich.
I was about to say I'm big on farm to table, especially restaurants so I might have to look that up.
Shout out. I'll name them on the podcast. 61 Main.
All right.
They gave me lots of love. It's where I sold probably 50% of my produce.
Oh, awesome.
Chef Jenna was so great. It was all just like Southern food, no frills, but a little bit of frills, but not overly high price. No. But we go there and eat sometimes. I'm like, damn it, I miss this. It's so good.
Huge on farm to table, so I definitely might have to try that out.
So good. It's just so bougie. In some places,
you're right.
It's like I don't want to pay for a really good pork chop meal. I don't pay $58 for it. My God.
Why? I will tell you where it's definitely apparently bougie. Washington D.C. I went to 2 farm to tables in Washington D.C. I think one meal is literally $80 something, $90.
Yeah, that's what it costs.
But I did have some pretty good venison. I was like, it's amazing.
Deer and Dove here. I've been there once, but it is so expensive.
Deer and Dove, so that's another
one. That's one indicator.
Oh, you're putting me on.
That's one indicator. Right now. I mean, you're gonna come out of there $200. You're dropping $200 bucks between you and a friend.
All right.
2 drinks,
and that's about it.
2 drinks, a dessert, and a meal. Maybe you split, and it's $200. No shade. Those chefs are amazing.
Yeah.
And doing what they do, but that's the cuisine I cook.
Absolutely.
Being on the farm, I learned how to cook like you wouldn't believe. We did a lot of fresh mix.
Absolutely.
We grew 43 varieties. Like, at the end of the day, we grew like 43 varieties of tomatoes
Oh my gosh.
at Wolf Scratch Farm.
That's huge.
Heirlooms out the butt.
So were you guys like hanging them and just letting them go?
We did every sort of kind of growing method. Michael and I tried everything.
Yeah.
We tried everything. It was like no-till.
Absolutely.
Biodynamic. We did compost teas. We did do a string system, like poles and then string
Absolutely.
system, and we kind of kept them. They looked like beautiful, like grapes, like
Yes.
we weaved them through, and we did all kinds of crazy shit with tomatoes.
No, I definitely got to get together with you and Michael at the same time.
Oh, we would have a lot of fun.
Yeah,
We'd have a lot of fun. He used to make some homemade hooch.
Oh my gosh, that probably had to be intense.
It was good. Good.
I do want to
Like
give my own
brandy, some kind of brandy.
I do want to give my own experience of making a wine and a mead from our native plants this year. Like, I will for sure be going to harvest some muscadines. I want to harvest some blackberries. I want to harvest some, maybe even some. What else do we have out there? I just want to harvest as much of our edible berries that we can, and I'm going to make a wine and mead by December this year.
Let's get together on that.
I'm
a cocktail guy, so
Yeah.
I think like I remember using muscadine juice in a cocktail that I had.
Yes.
And I was like, dang, this is good. I want to experiment more with it.
Yes.
It was really good.
So my friend
Really,
from
really good.
Kennesaw actually brought me a little cup to my house of muscadine wine, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. He was like, yeah, man, I just had these muscadines frozen in my freezer for about 2 years. So I was like, let me actually do something. I'm a mead guy. I told you I went up to Maine, and that was my first experience with mead.
Mead is dope.
So now I'm like, I have to make my own. And we have the native edibles to do so here. So it's game over. I'm going to be doing it.
Let's
and we
collab.
can definitely do it. Let's do it. Yes.
We should collab on this.
I
It'd be
have
fun.
tons of blackberries behind my house, so I'm going to grab a bunch of those. We're going to do this.
So all right, so let's talk about something inspiring.
Absolutely.
This has been a really, really great conversation. And I always try to leave the podcast with something inspirational, something people can like, right?
Absolutely.
Something that people can breathe and think. We have a tumultuous 4 years ahead of us.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
we do. We need to give people positivity and hope. That's the only way we're going to get through this. So, in your world, what does a perfect restoration future look like? A restorative future look like? If you could paint me a picture of what you think our urban forest should look like, what the programming should look like, paint me a picture of this.
Absolutely. I appreciate your before comments because that is an unfortunate reality a lot of us are facing right now. I won't speak in any directs, but
You can. This is I am very open politically
Absol-
about where I sit. This is a podcast about climate change.
Absolutely.
And there's no room for deniers on this podcast.
No.
I'm sorry.
You're so right.
Right?
No,
so
you're so
like,
right.
here we are. We're at this problem. We're at this place in life where we just need to be open
Yes.
and understand that we have a current administration that does not believe in climate change at all.
At all.
And we just walked out of the Paris Climate Accord.
So I was
So
literally,
what the fuck? We can talk about it openly, my friend, please.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, I was literally going to say, like, I appreciate you saying that this is a safe space because the reality of it is I just had to talk and discuss and analyze this 3 days ago because of that exact thing. Funding has been cut. It has been cut when it comes to green jobs, when it comes to environmental funding. I mean, transparently, I am probably a part of a grant that has already been cut. So it's like, this is a reality. Yeah.
EPA?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So this
The reduction, inflation,
Absolutely.
something grant. Yeah, I wrote two. I'm on two of those grants. And I'm like,
So unfortunately, like,
ain't going to happen.
I think one of the accounts said that they may already have funding if you have it from the grantor, but if the grantor does not already have that funding, they will not be getting it. So that's
what I'm hoping. I do think that there is still a lot of money in coffers that have already been allocated.
That's what I'm hoping as well.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Absolutely. So I appreciate the safe space because that is an unfortunate reality that we are all going to have to be dealing with.
100%.
But I will say that there is a huge push. I want to be so transparent with people because I've only been in Atlanta for about 2 years now.
Oh, yeah.
And my first year was like, okay, yeah, there's a little group here, like people like this. And going into my second year, there's a push. There's a push of a movement of people saying, hey, no, nature matters, the environment matters, and we're here to protect it. So what I would say a perfect look of restoration looks like is intersectionality, having multiple people from different sectors of the workforce getting involved into our outdoors, whether that's a corporate group coming out to volunteer with a restoration nonprofit, but still having a market media have their own organization shoot this invasive removal site, while also having maybe yoga for people who don't want to do actual hands-on restoration. I think we need to start involving multiple people, multiple minds, and multiple souls into this field, into this environment that was actually created for all of us, not just a certain group or a certain people who studied it. It's just, I really think the future of this looks like intersectionality is where we just get multiple different people into this field.
I love that.
Seriously.
Enough said. That was perfect. Yeah, I mean, that hits right at home for me because that's absolutely the work that I want to do. I want to be that fabric and the storyteller and, bring, all intersections together, like bridging good public-private partnership. Right now is a time for us not to bury our heads in the sand.
Yes.
We have to get out there and do something. Locally is where the shit's gonna matter and it's gonna change. So you hit the nail on the head, friend. And I can't wait to do some really great work with you. I can't. I think so. We should schedule. Besides this podcast, we should schedule some really great time together so we can
absolutely
map out how we.
I'm a big coffee guy, so we got that.
Me too. Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, Dajawn, thank you so much for joining Roots Down Regenerative AF podcast. Tell people where to find you.
Absolutely.
How they can connect.
Absolutely. You guys can find me, Dajawn Williams. I would say my business profile, LinkedIn, is just Dajawn Williams, or you can find me on Instagram at deemed lightworker, deemed_lightworker, or Facebook. Dajawn Williams is the same.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is Regenerative AF Podcast. Guests like this are making a difference in our local communities. What a hell of an Earth steward. I am so excited to have him on the show. If you guys want to see more of this podcast, like and subscribe. That's the way you keep it moving. Thank you guys so much, and peace out.
Thank